Arc did a really good job with the presentation of this game. After playing through Guilty Gear Xrd for the past month, I already knew that they had the talent, but Dragon Ball Fighterz mimics the anime's art style really well and translates it into fluid and refined animations. I also really dig the soundtrack here. Each character has their own theme, all of which are fantastic and fit their personalities pretty well. The style of music mostly consists of rock and metal, which I'm a big fan of, but even includes some dubstep and even jazz tracks here and there. Even the menu and stage themes are really great, which is nice because that's what you'll be spending most of your time listening to. I personally think that music is one of the most important parts of a video game, and it's clear that Arc has a similar idea as they clearly put a lot of time and effort into making this game's impressive soundtrack. Fighterz stays very faithful to the look and feel of the anime with the art and the soundtrack, but also with many direct references to the anime and films. Just take a look at one of the game's dramatic finishes. Fighterz takes the gameplay of previous titles and throws them out in favor of a more familiar system of light, medium, and heavy attacks, with the fourth button tied to projectiles. It also takes cues from the popular Marvel vs. Capcom series, as each match is a 3v3 fight that ends when all three of a player's fighters are knocked out. By pressing either of the two assist buttons, you can request help from your two teammates or tag them into the fight themselves. The game's familiar controls allow you to easily perform each character's special moves, and these moves vary between fighters but generally require the same inputs. For example, executing a quarter circle forward with a projectile attack makes Goku fire a Kamehameha, and the same motion will result in a Kamehameha or a similar attack for most of the other characters as well. In addition to the four main attack buttons, the Dragon Rush ability works like a grab, cancelling an opponent's block and sending them into the air. You also have a Super Dash button that lets you fly across the screen towards your opponent, opening them up for a combo if that hit connects. The Super Dash does seem to be a little bit overpowered at first, but a good defense will shut down players who spam the move too often. Another defensive tactic is the Sparkling Burst. By activating the Sparkling Burst, you can regain some of the blue health that you've lost over the course of the match, as well as increase your damage output slightly. This should really only be activated towards the end of a match, as the benefits are actually amplified if you are on your last fighter. You can also hold down the light and medium attack buttons to charge your key gauge up to 7 full bars. The key gauge is used to perform a variety of super attacks that are much flashier than regular special moves. The reworking of the controls allows for fighting game fans to easily transfer their skills to Dragon Ball Fighterz while still introducing the more casual players to the gameplay of most anime fighting games. One feature that seems to cater directly to the casual player is auto combos. By rapidly pressing the light attack button or the medium attack button, the player is able to perform a basic combo that would otherwise require specific timing and inputs. These auto combos allow less experienced players to feel like they are part of the fight without having to spend hours learning how to do simple combos. To many players, auto combos seem like a cheap tactic, seeing as though the damage output is actually fairly decent for simply mashing buttons. But as players begin to climb up the ranks, they will begin to realize that both auto combos and manual combos have their place. Manual combos are far more rewarding to land both technically and visually, and auto combos do a great job of making the game accessible to new players. Now that we've gone over the gameplay itself, let's take a look at some of the game modes where you can test your skills. All of the fighting game staples are here: training, arcade, replays, and rankings. I was hoping for a tutorial mode similar to that of Guilty Gear Xrd, since the one in that game was incredibly helpful, but the one that we have here gets the job done just fine. As far as the arcade mode goes, it actually deviates from the traditional arcade ladder by taking branching paths depending on how well you perform in each fight. Completing the hardest path all the way through is a hard but rewarding journey. This is a pretty cool mechanic that makes for playing the arcade mode worth it. Another mode that Fighterz has is Tournament Mode. It works just about as you would expect, allowing up to 16 local players to fight their way up to the top. This mode would be a lot more interesting if there was an online option available, but as it stands, you are limited to local players only. As far as online goes, World Match is where you can choose to play either a ranked or casual match against random players. You can also join arena matches where you can have a casual fight against the other players in the lobby. The game has only been out for a week now, so I can't fully judge the state of its servers, but there have been more than a few moments where I've been unable to find a match, even though I can literally see other players waiting in the same queue. There is one other way to fight the players in your current lobby though, and that's by finding or opening your own ring match. These work almost like private rooms for up to 8 players to join, and you can even customize the match settings to your preferences, or add a password to let only your friends join in. And of course, we have the story mode. Unlike some of the previous Dragon Ball games, we actually don't play through any of the arcs from the anime. Instead, we get to play through an all-new story that was created specifically for this game. This new story takes place over 3 arcs and follows the events of an all-new villain's evil plans. This villain is none other than Android 21, a completely new character created and designed by Akira Toriyama himself just for this game. The story begins as Goku wakes up not knowing where or who he is. We quickly find out that the person we're looking at isn't actually Goku, but instead a soul that has joined with Goku in a puzzling turn of events. At first, Goku is trapped with only the ability to communicate with the soul that is joined with his body. Only after getting some help from Bulma does Goku learn to switch control of his body between the soul and himself. After a confrontation with Android 16, Goku realizes that he is unable to fight on his own, as all of his power has been mysteriously transferred to his new friend. Goku decides to let the soul do all of the fighting for him, and joins Bulma in rescuing their fallen friends. You learn that they too have lost most of their power, leaving them much weaker than usual. Realizing that their powers can be accessed through the soul, each fighter asks for it to link with their bodies and fight for them, lending their strength to the cause. On their mission, the group learns about these mysterious waves that are causing all of the fighters on Earth to fall into a weakened state. This is what lets each fighter have a similar enough power level to stand a chance against one another. Even characters like Yamcha and Tien are able to fight alongside Goku due to the wave's effects. This leads to character matchups that you would never really expect to see otherwise. Matching up certain characters on your team can even lead to one of many unique interactions, oftentimes being more entertaining than the main story itself. In case you didn't guess it already, the writers decided to give the player their own character in the form of the soul. I find it really odd that they made this decision, but I won't deny that it is unique. The game places your team on a map that somewhat resembles a game board, and you're given a set number of turns to make your way to the boss fight, fighting random clones on your way there. Although I liked the idea at first, it wasn't long before I realized that the system got very repetitive very quickly. There was little to no reason to fight any of the clones on the map other than the ones that led directly to a new fighter or to the boss himself. The clones that were scattered across the map gave nothing more than a bit of experience and these hardly useful skill drops. The process of leveling characters and equipping skills shows that the developers clearly intended to create a more active experience in your average fighting game story mode, but it doesn't really go anywhere. The levels of the enemies increase, giving them more health and damage, but all that accomplishes is wasting more of my time. Bosses with high levels encourage you to stick with the same 3 fighters, preventing you from experimenting with the whole roster. I will admit that the levels aren't too much of a problem, but that's coming from someone who actually did a lot of extra fights in an attempt to unlock some of those extra scenes. If I had skipped all of the unnecessary fights altogether, I may have found myself struggling to catch up. I do have a few gripes with this mode, but the story is still enjoyable and worth playing through. One thing that the story does attempt to do is introduce you to the whole roster of fighters. With only 24 fighters in the game, it doesn't take very long to get acquainted with the full cast, especially when the cast includes 2 Gohans, 2 Vegetas, and 3 Gokus. I will say that the movesets of these characters are not identical by any means, but they do appear to play very similarly, except for maybe Goku Black. The good news is that there is a very big possibility of DLC characters joining the roster in the future. For now, all we can do is spend our Zenny in the lobby's shop to unlock new character colors or lobby avatars. That actually brings me to my next point, the lobby system. Okay, look, there aren't too many negative aspects to this game, but I do have to point out a couple of things here and there. When you boot up the game, you are required to connect to the internet and join one of the many lobbies regardless of whether or not you intend to play online. That means that you simply can't play the game unless you're connected to the internet. Oh, and if you want to play this game with your friend, then good luck. There's no invite system in the game whatsoever. The only way that you could play together is if you were to join the same lobby and join a ring match. That is, if the ring matches actually worked. Chances are you'll end up seeing this screen over and over again. That means that this game's only way of creating a private match with your friends is effectively broken. Your only other option is to try and match with them in the arena match. Now, I'm not going to knock this game too hard for any of the server-related issues that I'm having right now, because I'm positive that after a few weeks everything should be fine. And the always online thing doesn't really affect me too much personally, but it could be very irritating to other people, so that is another point to consider. Dragon Ball Fighterz is a really great game. Despite the few flaws that I found in its story mode and in its current online state, the thrill of playing heated ranked battles is what keeps me coming back. Arc System Works did a really fantastic job with this game, and you can tell that they put a lot of love and passion into it. From the fast-paced, fluid, and addictive gameplay to the ridiculously nostalgic interactions and references, Dragon Ball Fighterz is one of the best fighting games around.